Hello everybody, welcome to the Nearpod video about taxonomic groups. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about a little bit of the history of how organisms are classified. I'm going to read through this very quickly, and then you'll have a little bit of background knowledge about kingdoms and domains and how organisms are classified. Okay, so this guy, Aristotle, Greek philosopher, he was one of the first people to start classifying living things. He classified things as either plants or animals. This was probably before he knew what bacteria and viruses were, because there were no microscopes back then. But every living thing was either a plant or an animal. This system lasted for about 2,000 years. And then this guy, Carolus Linnaeus, was a Swedish scientist who observed many organisms. This was a few thousand years later that this guy came around. He developed the modern classification system in the 1700s. He placed them in groups based on their visible characteristics. About this time, microscopes were around. We're going to skip that. Okay, the 8 levels of classification. First is domain. This is the broadest level. Then kingdom. This is the second broadest level. Then phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. The broadest category of classification is domain. There are 3 domains in which all organisms can be classified. Eukaryotes, so this is me and you, and most large, all large living things, birds, plants, grass, elephants, snakes, bugs, fish, sharks, whales, all this stuff are eukarya. Then we have archaea and eubacteria. There's a lot of life in here too, but this is all unicellular organisms. Domain eukarya, this includes all eukaryotes. 89% of all organisms are eukaryotes. That's about 12.4 million species. This includes the kingdoms animals, plants, fungi, and protista. Domain archaea. This is the second domain. Remember, there's 3 domains. This domain includes organisms that are prokaryotes. So that means organisms that don't have a nucleus in their cells. All archaea bacteria are classified under this domain. 4% of all organisms on Earth are archaea. That's about 600,000 species that have been discovered so far. There could be more. This includes bacteria that live in extreme environments such as the Arctic or super hot springs or even volcanic vents. Yes, stuff lives where it's really, really hot and really cold. The environment where these organisms live is a major characteristic, and this separates bacteria from all other bacteria. This domain only includes the kingdom Archaeobacteria. Then we have the domain Eubacteria. This includes all organisms that are prokaryotes. No organized nucleus, remember. This includes all other bacteria. 7% of all organisms are eubacteria. That means 1 million types of bacteria, and there's only 4,000 that have been identified. This includes bacteria that are decomposers, non-harmful bacteria, as well as disease-causing bacteria. So there could be some beneficial bacteria in your stomach, as well as the stuff that can make you sick. This includes the kingdom bacteria. There are 6 kingdoms. Now we've moved on to the second broadest category. There's 6 kingdoms. Animals, plants, fungi, protista, bacteria, archaeobacteria, and these are the 6 kingdoms of how organisms are classified. The first kingdom, animals. That's dogs, cats, and fleas. These are multicellular organisms. They sexually reproduce. Some of them can reproduce asexually like sea anemones, but not very many of them. Most of them reproduce sexually. Then the kingdom of plants. That includes grass, trees, vegetables, weeds. They are multicellular organisms. They are eukaryotes. They are autotrophs. That means they make their own food. Some of them produce flowers. Some of them produce sexually and asexually. Then the kingdom of fungi. That includes mushrooms, mold, yeast. These are all eukaryotes. Many of them are multicellular. There are a few that are unicellular. They're all heterotrophs, which means they have to eat their own, they have to find their own food to eat. They can't make their own food. They usually feed on decaying organisms. You'll find mushrooms in the ground next to cow poop sometimes, or in the front yard where an old tree, rotten tree stump is. You'll see mushrooms popping up there from time to time. Found almost everywhere on land and a few in water. They can reproduce sexually or asexually. Then you have the kingdom of Protista. This is microscopic organisms like amoebas, parameciums, euglenias, and multicellular algae. They are eukaryotes. They have a nucleus. They can be unicellular, sometimes multicellular. They can be autotrophs. They can make their own food, or they could have to find their own food. And they can reproduce sexually or asexually. This one can be a little bit confusing for you. Just remember that they're eukaryotes. They have a nucleus. Then we have the kingdom of bacteria. This includes E. coli, salmonella. E. coli and salmonella can make you sick, but you do have strains of E. coli in your stomach that are considered beneficial bacteria, so that's kind of a broad statement. These are unicellular organisms. They're prokaryotes. They don't have an organized nucleus. They can be helpful or harmful, like I said about E. coli. They can be autotrophic or heterotrophic, make their own food or have to find their own food to eat. And they reproduce sexually. That means they make asexually. That means they make copies of themselves. Then we have the kingdom of archaeobacteria. These are halophiles and thermophiles. These are the ones that live in the really extreme environments, the acidic, the really acidic hot waters. They're unicellular, they're prokaryotes, they live in extreme environments. They can be autotrophic or heterotrophic, and they reproduce asexually. Okay, that is a little bit of the background of the domains and kingdoms. And you can stop the video here and move on with your Nearpod.